Hello and welcome to this quick guide on how to use mesh scaling. Mesh scaling applies only to meshes in the library and does not apply to voxels. So the meshes are in this section of our library over here. And for this quick guide, I am going to use a barrel here. To change the scale of a mesh means to change its size. And we can do that by selecting the mesh in our game world that we want to change, and then using the entity editor over here on the right hand side, navigate to the mesh scale property and change this number to the desired size. If I want it to be twice the default size of this mesh, I can put in the number 2. If I want it to be half the default size, I can put in 0.5 and that will scale it down to half the size. Notice that when I have this locked, it will use proportional scaling, which means that when I scale one number, it scales all of the other numbers at the same time to keep the proportions of the shape as they were by default. If I want to, I can unlock this and then I can scale in a particular direction only, deforming the shape. So let's say I wanted to make this a taller barrel, I could put 2 in the height, and because this is unlocked, these two don't change and just the height changes. This means it will stretch the shape and it will also stretch the texture, which works really well for some shapes. For example, if we look at these rocks over here, by stretching them in different directions and using a disproportional editing, scaling on each of these rocks, it means we can get some amazing effects that look really natural and you wouldn't be able to tell that this was all made with the same rock. So that's a really useful part of mesh scaling. Another thing you can do if you are using advanced mode, so you can do all of that stuff using basic mode. If you're using advanced mode, you can use the select to select an entity, a mesh in your game world, press F3 and that will use the scale tool, which brings up this widget. Now I don't need to worry about whether this is locked or unlocked when I'm using the widget. Essentially what this widget means is that I can scale in a specific direction, whichever one I want to, by clicking and dragging on these handles. If I want to scale the whole shape proportionally, I can click on the middle of this widget and drag, and that will scale the whole shape proportionally. If I want to return the shape to its default size, just make sure that it's 1, 1, 1 over here in the mesh scale. When I click and drag, I'm actually changing the size of this, the scale of this mesh in increments. And these increments can be set up here. At the moment, by default, it's set to 0.25. If I wanted to, I could set it in increments of 1, which means that every time I scale up, it will scale up in increments of 1 or whatever. If I don't want to scale in increments, then I can uncheck scale snap and it will smoothly scale. And this is also achievable by holding shift when I'm scaling either in a particular direction or in the center of the widget. You can also scale meshes using code. So you need to get hold of some kind of mesh entity, do .mesh scale and give it a new vector. The vector will be the X, Y, and Z directions of what magnitude you want your scale to be. Hopefully this has been an informative and useful quick guide, and I look forward to seeing your scaled meshes in Crater.